Two people can earn the same income, live the same lifestyle, and end up in completely different financial worlds 5 years later. One builds momentum, options, security. The other feels stuck, even though nothing went wrong. The difference isn't luck or talent. It's a hidden 5-year wealth gap most people don't notice until it's already too late. In this video, we're breaking down where that gap comes from, how it quietly forms, and what separates the people who pull ahead from those who don't. Before we get started, if you want to see the money patterns most people miss, hit subscribe. This is where financial blind spots get exposed. The compound effect of small money decisions. Here's the thing most people miss. Wealth isn't built by one big decision. It's built by dozens of tiny choices you make every single day. Think about it like this. If you spend $5 on coffee every morning, that's $35 a week. Over 5 years, that's over $9,000, and that's just coffee. Now imagine that money invested instead, growing at an average return. The difference between someone who automates their savings and someone who says they'll save what's left over at the end of the month is massive. One person is systematically building wealth. The other is hoping for wealth, and hope isn't a strategy. The people who win this game treat every dollar like it has a job to do. They're not being cheap, they're being strategic. They understand that spending $15 here and $20 there adds up to the difference between financial freedom and financial stress 5 years down the road. Income's asset mindset. Most people focus entirely on their paycheck. They want a raise, a promotion, a higher salary. And sure, that matters. But here's what separates the wealthy from everyone else. They focus on assets, not just income. An income pays your bills today. An asset pays you forever. While Person A is celebrating their salary bump and upgrading their lifestyle, Person B is taking that extra money and buying stocks, real estate, or building a side business. 5 years later, Person A still depends entirely on their job. Person B has multiple income streams that work while they sleep. The wealth gap isn't about who makes more money right now. It's about who's building things that make money for them later. Rich people don't just work for money, they make their money work for them. And that shift in thinking from income to assets is what creates the 5-year wealth gap nobody talks about. The real cost of lifestyle inflation. This one kills more financial futures than anything else. You get a raise, so you upgrade your car. You get a bonus, so you move to a nicer apartment. You get a promotion, so you start eating out more. It feels good in the moment, but here's the trap. Your expenses grow just as fast as your income, sometimes faster. And 5 years later, even though you're making way more money, you have nothing to show for it. Meanwhile, someone else kept their lifestyle relatively flat while their income grew. They didn't deprive themselves, they just didn't fall into the trap of needing to look wealthy. And that's the key difference. Looking wealthy versus being wealthy. The people who actually build wealth over 5 years are the ones who resist the urge to spend every raise they get. They let the gap between what they earn and what they spend grow wider and wider. That gap is where wealth lives. Lifestyle inflation is silent and deadly. It convinces you that you deserve to spend more because you earn more. But the people building real wealth think differently. They believe they deserve to be free, and freedom costs less than trying to impress people who don't care about you. The power of early wins and momentum. Here's something nobody tells you. The first 2 years matter more than the last 3. If you start strong, investing early, building good habits, and avoiding debt, you create momentum that carries you forward. If you start slow, telling yourself you'll get serious about money later, you lose years you can never get back. Think about compound interest. $1 invested at 25 is worth way more than $1 invested at 30, even though it's only 5 years apart. That's because time is the magic ingredient. The earlier you start, the less you have to contribute to reach the same goal. People who understand this don't wait for the perfect moment. They start messy, they start small, but they start now, and 5 years later, they're miles ahead of people who are still planning to start someday. Momentum works both ways though. If you start with debt and bad habits, that momentum drags you backward. 5 years of interest on credit cards, 5 years of late fees, 5 years of not investing. That's a hole that's incredibly hard to climb out of. The wealth gap isn't just about what you do right. It's also about what you avoid doing wrong. Building skills that pay forever. Everyone talks about saving and investing money, and they're right, those things matter a lot. But there's another part of the wealth equation that doesn't get talked about enough: skills. The real difference between where people end up financially after 5 years often has less to do with how much they saved and more to do with what they learned during that time. Some people spend 5 years simply doing their job, repeating the same tasks, and staying at the same skill level. Others use those same 5 years to deliberately build skills that can earn money anywhere, in any economy. Skills like selling, communication, marketing, negotiation, and investing. These are not tied to one employer or one industry. They follow you for life. Skills compound just like money does. When you learn how to negotiate, you don't just benefit once. You earn higher salaries, get better business deals, pay less for big purchases, and build stronger professional relationships over and over again. When you take the time to truly understand investing, you stop gambling on random tips and trends. You start making informed decisions with a clear strategy, which protects and grows your money over time. The people who get ahead don't only focus on saving what's left over at the end of the month. They invest in themselves first. They read books, take courses, learn from people who are ahead of them, and put themselves in environments where they are challenged and surrounded by smarter, more successful individuals. The social circle effect. Show me your friends, and I'll show you your financial future. That sounds harsh, but it's true. If everyone around you is broke, complaining about money, and living for the weekend, it's incredibly hard to build wealth. You'll feel weird for saying no to expensive dinners. You'll feel cheap for not buying the latest gadgets. You'll feel pressure to keep up. But if your circle is full of people who talk about investments, side hustles, and financial goals, suddenly that becomes normal. You start seeing opportunities instead of obstacles. The 5-year wealth gap often comes down to who you're spending time with. Not because you need rich friends, but because you need friends who think differently about money. People who challenge you to grow, who share what's working for them, who hold you accountable to your goals. Your environment shapes your decisions, and your decisions shape your wealth. 5 years in the wrong environment, and you'll wonder why you're stuck. 5 years in the right one, and you'll wonder why you didn't make the change sooner. Wealth doesn't disappear overnight. It drifts apart slowly, 5 years at a time. Once you see the gap, you can close it. If this made you think differently, like, subscribe, and share it with someone who should see it too.